Steven Universe starts the series that bears his name as a little kid with a big destiny, or at least a big burden that falls upon his small shoulders. In this, he's not really any different from the many heroes you typically see in adventure shows, but of course, Steven Universe is different. He doesn't like to fight, he just wants to help people. At the start of these series, he's just a happy-go-lucky kid who wants to sit around and eat ice cream sandwiches. Then he meets Connie, and at first she's as clueless about the world and what it holds as he is, but they complement each other quite well. Steven lost his mother, but he has a large extended family of sorts that basically gives him free rein to do whatever his heart desires. Connie has a mother, and she is quite controlling. And there's a lot of tension between Connie and her controlling mother. Now, unlike Pacifica Northwest in Gravity Falls, or Amity Blight in the Owl House, Connie isn't abused. Her mother isn't a monster by any means. Her mother's just a person who pushes her to be someone she doesn't want to be. She's overprotective and confuses that with actually looking out for her daughter's best interests. That happens. Her mother desperately micromanages Connie's time, and because of that, Connie misses out on a normal childhood. That is, until she meets Steven. Now, of course, Steven is not exactly normal by any means. It's kind of funny to call him a normal boy when he's half alien and raised by a bunch of other aliens, but he does at least have a happy-go-lucky early childhood, unlike Connie. Steven is ultimately, for Connie, a sort of manic pixie dream boy. This excitable person who comes into her sad, lonely, somber life and sweeps her off into a life of adventure and daring and wonder. And through these adventures, she finally emerges from her shell and becomes the person she always could be. She always had the potential to be. Now, this reversal of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl trope fits the relationship between Steven and Connie because that relationship inverts traditional gender dynamics in several other interesting ways. Steven is associated with pink. He's not aggressive unless you count what happens to him by the end of Steven Universe Future. Instead of a sword, he carries a shield, and his tears have healing properties. All of these traits, if given to a female character, would be extraordinarily stereotypical. Given to a male character, they're subversive, and as importantly, they're quite interesting. Connie, of the two of them, is the more traditionally masculine character. She wields a sword, and she's not afraid of a fight. She imagines herself as a brave hero striking a blow against villainy. But this reversal is felt more in Steven Universe than in just external traits and characteristics. Connie is cunning, witty, and logical. As opposed to the more touchy-feely and idealistic Steven, Connie is more rational. She's more practical, she's more realistic. She thinks out the consequences of situations. This doesn't mean she's cold or that she's not empathetic, but she's not quite as emotionally open as Steven. On the other hand, she's more determined, almost stubborn in a way. When she has a goal, there's nothing that can stop her from achieving it. Obviously, it would be wrong to categorize these traits as exclusively male. They do, in fact, represent one half of the human spirit, but perhaps a better word for that half would be yang as opposed to yin, or Apollonian as opposed to Dionysian. It's the side that's all about control, about order, about energy directed outward rather than inward. But yes, these are in fact traits that traditionally speaking have been associated with masculinity. Steven dips into the dark side of masculinity at the end of Steven Universe Future, but it wouldn't quite be fair to say that the show is innately against these more Apollonian traits. Those traits traditionally coded as male. It's just that the show gives these traits to Connie instead of Steven. There are indeed drawbacks to these traits, like how Connie can hurt someone without realizing it, emotionally speaking, as she does to Steven at multiple points in the narrative, but for the most part, these traits benefit her, and she's a nice counterpoint to the crystal gems. She's a grounding influence on Steven, and that's a major reason why he loves her so much and why she means so much to him. Part of this is because, as a human, she has an outsider's perspective on all these extraterrestrial, supernatural, crystal gem shenanigans. She's largely apart from all this cosmic drama. But the much more important reason why Connie can be a grounding influence on Steven has a lot less to do with her being a human and a lot more to do with her just being Connie. Though Connie is quieter than Steven, she is always thinking and she is always reasoning. She's brave and courageous, yes, but she also knows how to take care of herself, as opposed to Steven, who is selfless and self-sacrificing to a fault. The gender subversion here is subtle. I appreciate how the show doesn't call attention to it. Doesn't suggest that the dynamics between Steven and Connie are anything other than completely natural, anything other than how things ought to be. Now, this of course does not mean there are not benefits to a more straightforward subversion. Think about Evangelion, which plays off the dynamic that you see in a lot of anime of this hot-headed guy, this more cool, calm, and collected guy, and the girl caught between them. Here, the hot-blooded and cold-blooded ones, the rivals of sorts, are girls, and the oversensitive one is a guy. Much of the tension plaguing Shinji's psyche is explicitly about his not being able to measure up to his ideas, many of which he got from his father, about what a guy should be. This is fascinating, but there's also value in Steven Universe's more subtle approach. Steven's empathy is by far his greatest asset. Perhaps you find his proclivity for converting basically any being he fights to his side with just a bit of kindness and concern a bit unrealistic, but his displays of friendship are impressive nonetheless. He lives for those around him. Where others use swords and daggers, Steven uses love, and that's kind of beautiful. But it can also backfire sometimes. While Steven Universe Future is not perfect, I really respect its commitment to demonstrating the fallout of being someone whose self-worth is so intrinsically tied to his ability to help out others. His ability to be selfless. There is such a thing as being too focused on being helpful and selfless, as one can very easily neglect the self. This happens to Steven, and it drives him mad, and it causes him to embrace his absolute worst self. And who's the one to save him? Connie. While everyone else is consumed by self-pity, Connie takes action. She doesn't just feel sorry or regretful, she actually does something. She understands exactly why Steven is breaking down. And she calls on all the gems to actually be there for Steven for once, instead of relying on him to come out and save the day and fix everyone's problems. This is consistent with the person Connie has been throughout the show. She may not have as much emotional intelligence as Steven, but she has this grounded practicality that allows her to know what Steven really needs. She's self-motivated and self-driven. Instead of looking out for what needs to be done in abstract, she focuses her attention on those she cares about and she tries her best to help these people. This is why Steven loves Connie, and this is why they work perfectly well as a couple. They complement each other extremely well. It's a beautiful, lovely relationship, and I love how it builds throughout the series. So thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like and comment and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can and you want to see more videos like this. Keep watching Steven Universe. It's a brilliant, lovely show, and I'm glad it's all there for us to watch. And I really appreciate how much care and craftsmanship they put into creating this relationship. And I also like how they didn't try and rush it. They didn't try and force them to become romantic partners until they were a little bit older and actually could understand what that means and understand that commitment. So anyway, thank you all for watching. Tune in soon for my next analysis. It will be coming soon. Adios, comrades.